In history, there are empires whose names are well known to everyone, such as the Roman Empire or the British Empire. And then there are those that, despite their monumental significance and size, curiously receive relatively little attention in Western historiography. One such example is the Umayyad Caliphate, the largest Muslim empire the world has ever seen. It stretched across 3 continents, was considered the center of culture, politics, and science of its time, and had a lasting impact on the Islamic world. Yet, despite its enormous significance, it remains an undiscovered chapter of history for many. This powerful empire, which rose from the deserts of Arabia in the 7th century and, at its peak, stretched from Spain to India, offers us a fascinating narrative of power, intrigue, cultural flourishing, religious tolerance, and eventually a dramatic decline. In today's video, we will explore the history of one of the most powerful empires in history. How was it able to expand so incredibly far in such a short time? Why was it considered significantly more advanced than the contemporary European kingdoms, and what was behind the drastic collapse? We will examine all these intriguing questions in today's video. The founding of the Umayyad Caliphate in the year 661 AD marks a crucial turning point in Islamic history. But initially, the Umayyad clan was a fierce opponent of Muhammad. The Umayyads were one of the most respected families in Mecca at that time and became the leaders of the opposition against the Islamic prophet. It was only when Muhammad, in the year 630, succeeded in conquering Mecca from Medina that the family embraced Islam and played a crucial role in the establishment of the empire. However, after Muhammad's death in the year 632 AD, power initially passed to the Rashidun Caliphs. This period was characterized by an incredibly rapid territorial expansion, but also numerous internal challenges. On this map, we can see very well how much the empire expanded alone in the following 30 years. In the 650s, the Caliphate had subjugated not only the Arabian Peninsula, but also the Levant and the Transcaucasus in the north, North Africa from Egypt to present-day Tunisia in the west, and the Iranian plateau to parts of Central Asia and South Asia in the east. However, internally, the power of the caliphs did not seem secure at all. The primary issue was the succession of Muhammad, which, by the way, continues to this day and divides Muslims into Sunnis and Shiites. The Rashidun Caliphs are still referred to by Sunnis as the rightly guided caliphs, whereas this term is rejected by the Shiites. It was precisely this power struggle that the Umayyads exploited. Muawiyah, the then governor of Syria and a member of the Umayyad clan, asserted his claims to the caliphate after the death of the 4th Rashidun Caliph. This led to the first major civil war in Islamic history, known as the First Fitna. The conflict ultimately ended with an agreement recognizing Muawiyah as caliph, thus paving the way for the Umayyads. With the establishment of the Umayyads as the ruling dynasty, the center of Islamic power shifted from Medina to Damascus. The system of governance also changed from a more egalitarian, community-oriented system to a monarchical system. What continued, however, was the constant expansion. A particularly noteworthy event was the advance into Europe. After the conquest of much of North Africa, the Umayyad armies crossed into Spain. There, they managed to subdue the Visigothic kingdom on the Iberian Peninsula in a very short time. This conquest led to the establishment of Al-Andalus, an important center of Islamic culture and power in Europe. and after the success in Spain, they continued moving northward. It was not until the year 732 AD, at the Battle of Tours, that they were stopped by the Franks under Charles Martel. But even in the east, the empire continued to expand. After gaining control over large parts of Central Asia, they conducted further successful campaigns into present-day Pakistan, parts of India, and deep into the area of present-day Afghanistan. They laid the foundation for these regions to remain predominantly Muslim to this day. They also developed a strong naval power, which enabled them to dominate the Mediterranean and conduct military as well as trade operations. But why were the Umayyads so incredibly successful? On the one hand, they established a more centralized form of governance compared to the more decentralized structures of the Rashidun caliphs. The caliph, at the top of the hierarchy, held the highest political and religious authority. Additionally, the Umayyads established a dynastic rule. This meant that power was inherited within the Umayyad family, contributing to greater continuity and stability in leadership. This diminished the constant power struggle between factions. The relocation of the capital to Damascus was also a key feature of the Umayyads. This step not only symbolized the shift of power, but also made the caliphate more accessible to the wealthy and strategically important regions of the Near East. Moreover, they developed a sophisticated tax system that financed the state apparatus and military expansions. This allowed for generous investments in infrastructure to facilitate communication and administration over large distances, an important step for controlling the far-flung regions in Europe and India. Another factor was the introduction of an advanced legal system. Although Islamic law, Sharia, continued to be the basis, the Umayyads also introduced administrative and criminal laws that strengthened state control and regulation. Furthermore, the Umayyads practiced a relatively high degree of tolerance towards non-Muslim populations, particularly towards the so-called people of the book, i.e., Christians and Jews. There was a special tax for non-Muslims, but overall, they were allowed to practice their faith peacefully and even have their own religious leaders. This policy often led to a more stable rule and less resistance in the conquered territories. Thus, the Umayyads were seen as significantly more tolerant than most Christian kingdoms of the time, which developed brutal punishments for so-called pagans. As a result, many territories surrendered to the Umayyads without a fight. The European kingdoms were also in a phase of transition, marked by numerous internal struggles. Thus, besides smaller kingdoms, the Visigoths and large parts of the Byzantine Empire were conquered. Only the Frankish Empire remained as a significant counterweight on the Christian side. However, the Umayyad Empire was not destined to last forever. By the middle of the 8th century, a growing number of problems arose. A certain decadence and costly lifestyle at the court emerged, which posed significant economic challenges to the dynasty. Costly military operations on the borders further exacerbated the situation. The main problem was that power was no longer secure internally. On the one hand, the Umayyad clan continued to grow, forming various factions. Other clans also began to rebel more frequently. Many perceived the caliphs as too worldly and decadent. As a result, the caliphs escalated their stance against non-Muslims, which led to rebellions in these regions, and other Arab families also seemed discontented. The Umayyads were ultimately in a dilemma that led to civil war. The Abbasids, a rival Islamic faction, were able to gain support from numerous dissatisfied groups within the empire and overthrow the Umayyads. Thus, the Umayyad rule ended in the year 750 AD with the capture of Damascus by the Abbasids, and the near-total annihilation of the Umayyad family. Only a grandson, Abd al-Rahman, managed to flee to Spain. He seized control of all Spanish territories and founded the Emirate of Córdoba, which would remain in existence for a long time. Thus, we can finally say that the Umayyads had an incredibly significant influence on history. They not only spread Islam and the Arabic language, but also brought our modern numerals to Europe. Gradually, these replaced Roman numerals. They left behind a rich legacy of Islamic architecture and art, including structures like the Great Mosque of Damascus and the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. Additionally, they laid the groundwork for the golden age of Islam during the Abbasid rule, when science, economy, and culture flourished.